Soft glide baits. It seems to be a very trendy topic, and there's a good reason for it. Just in the past year, there's been 3 new soft glide baits that have been brought to the market. Some have controversies, other ones swim very differently than how you would think they would. And so today, we're gonna be talking about 4 soft glide baits right now on the market and exactly which one is the quote-unquote best. So if you guys are ready, let's get right into today's video. Soft glide baits, they're definitely not a very new thing. They've been around for quite a long time now, and a lot of the brands that have come out with soft glide baits, they've always kind of teased them, especially the Japanese brands, where way back, like well over a decade ago, Depths had a soft version of the Depths 250 that was teased but never released. Probably due to a lot of different reasons as durability or hookup or just a wide variety of different things. But nowadays, we have 4 soft glide baits on the market to choose from. And today I've gathered basically all 4 of them to kind of talk about them, show the actions of them and their situationals, and which one I truly like the best. So let's get right into it. So the most popular and the oldest of the bunch is gonna be this guy right here. This is the Flag 170 by Grow Designs. Now this bait has been around for about a half a decade now at this point, and it's been a very popular bait in the small swim bait community just because it's made in Japan by one guy and it's semi hard to get and find, but when you can find them, guys love fishing this bait. They've made a couple different sizes as well, different patterns as well, and the Flag has been a staple in the swim bait community as kind of the go-to soft glide bait. Now, this bait has a fantastic natural swim to it due to its softness and its material. This tail is super flappy, so when you're fishing this bait, whether you're fishing it on a straight retrieve, a burn, a glide, a mix-up of a lot of different things, this bait has a very natural swim and look to it in the water. And that was kind of the biggest appeal to a soft glide bait when they first started kind of making these Flag baits. It's like, well, it just gives off a slightly bit different look than how a brush tail or a normal resin style glide bait will look under the water, and a lot of guys feel like that's kind of what gives them an edge in catching fish on a soft glide bait. A really cool thing with the soft glide bait is that you're able to skip the bait as well. So if you want to skip it under a tree, under a bush, under a dock or something like that and get a glide bait action out of the bait, you can finally do that with the soft glide baits, and the Flag is absolutely no exception to it. It skips great and you can fish the bait out, and it's gonna get you some amazing bites that you really wouldn't get because you can't really skip a hard glide bait up under docks, under trees without it either, you know, wrapping up or just you having a huge backlash. Now, straight out of the package, this is how the bait comes. It's gonna be a slow sinking version, but you can add a lot of different things to this. You can add some weights back here in the back on the bait so you can have it glide slightly bit different. It's gonna be a slow sink, so you can adjust weight, and how it glides will depend on how much weight that you put here in the back. So the customability of the bait is actually pretty cool. It comes with some spare eyes as well if yours come off. So the Flag 170, kind of just a staple bait that's been around for a while. It's proven in all the different sizes and applications, and it's definitely one of those baits that a lot of guys really appreciate having. So the pros and cons of the Flag 170. The pros is its ultra lifelike appearance under the water, it catches fish, and the customization that you can do on the bait. It looks great, a lot of different colors. Now the cons to this bait is, yes, they are fairly hard to find just because, again, it's made in Japan by a small brand that is Grow Design, so they can't make a whole lot of them. The retail on these guys is actually not as bad as a lot of people think. A lot of people think that the bait is like $60 to $80, and that's just not true for the 170 size. This retails probably around in that $20 to $23 price point, so it's fairly reasonable for a bait of this caliber. So a lot of guys have the misconception that they're far more expensive just because the flipper or aftermarket prices are definitely going to be higher than what the actual retail cost of the bait is. And kind of the thing that has always put me off on soft glide baits, and it's definitely no exception for the Grow design, is the durability of the bait. Because it is soft, it's gonna eventually tear and rip up, and you're gonna lose that bait. Where when you have a normal resin style glide bait, you can catch hundreds and hundreds of fish on it, and you'll never really lose the bait unless you snap it off or snag it or break it, really. So what the soft glide bait is, you might have a bait that's really working for you, and you might only be able to have gotten one, and you go out and you have a banger day and you catch 5, 10, 15, 20 fish on this one bait. It might not last, and boom, you're out of the bait and you don't have another one. So that's kind of the problem, is that the durability issue on soft glide baits have just been a major issue. When you have a soft plastic that's as soft as this bait, and it's super, super soft, right? You're gonna have to lose the durability factor, but the realism in the action of the bait is unmatched. So it's kind of like a give and take situation. The bait's super soft, so you get that really natural look swim to it, but the durability is gonna definitely be cut dramatically. And so you kind of have to give and take and weigh it in your own mind if it's worth picking up one of these baits or not. Now, the next bait is the one of high controversy, and that is this guy here. This happens to be the Berkeley Nessie. Now, the controversy started way back at ICAST when this bait won Best of Show for basically kind of knocking off the Grow designs. I mean, the body shape is super, super similar, and obviously Berkeley had to change some things around, so they added these plastic stabilizer fins on the bottom and this brush style tail. But the overall shape and design of the bait is just too similar. The way that it's set up and rigged is just far too similar. It's kind of a shame what has happened, and there's evidence of like, oh, well, it's not a knockoff. It's, well, Mike Iaconelli is the guy who kind of helped design this bait, and there's definitive proof, pictures, videos of him having a Grow design in his possession. So he definitely took inspiration from it, and he took the bait and probably just handed it to Berkeley and said, hey, let's change some things around and make our own version of this really cool Japanese bait. And I've talked about knockoffs before. I've done a video actually on this same exact topic. I'll leave a link to it up here if you guys wanted to watch it. I don't want to get too deep into it because this is a bait review video, but it is what it is. That's just how it is, and how it'll probably always be. But how is the bait? How is the bait? Is the bait good for what it is? This bait costs, at the 7-inch size, about $10. So half of the price of the Grow design. Now, a couple things to notice, like I said, you got a different tail. You got these stabilizer fins down here that are actually like hard plastic, right? And then the plastic actually of the bait, it's a bit stiffer. So the durability should be a little bit higher in regards to that, but the durability still has to come right here. It's in the hinge. And it seems like they've kind of reinforced it. The Grow design ones have also added a net to kind of help keep the bait together. So the durability on this bait is probably gonna be a lot higher than what you think. Now, the burning question, how does it compare in swim to the Grow designs? And they swim obviously differently because of the different plastics. So the Grow design definitely has a more natural swim to it, especially with the softness of the bait. So overall, the bait swims not that bad, actually. So you can fish this bait on just a normal straight retrieve, and it looks fine. You can fish it on a burn, again, it looks good. You can fish it like how you normally would fish a glide bait, glide, 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 glide. You can just do a straight glide, and overall, the bait looks pretty good. The only place where I saw this thing kind of lacking was the skippability of the bait. It doesn't skip as well as the flag. And I think a reason for that is the hard plastic fins that they have on the bait. It just does not help with the skipping ability of it. But overall, other than that, they are very similar in size and weight. These two baits, both 7 inches long, 170 millimeters or so, and they weigh just a little bit over an ounce, maybe an ounce and a quarter or so. So they are very, very similar baits. What I do kind of like with this bait, the Nessie, is they have added a little hook keeper here on the bottom So instead of just having the soft plastic to put your hook in, they have just a little keeper there that kind of just snaps the hook in just like that. And so it just adds a little more, I don't know, just security to that hook when you're fishing the bait. And obviously when you hook a fish, it's gonna pop right out. But the same kind of idea, split ring to swivel to split ring to hook, and that's it. That is the Berkley Nessie. Again, for what it is, it was a copy of an already amazing bait. So obviously it's gonna have very similar action and feature to it. So there it is. The Berkley Nessie 7-inch and the Flag 170. These have been obviously the hottest bait of controversy within the past year. So I just thought, hey, I need to review both of them to see. And for what it is, I obviously love Grow Designs. I love supporting a Japanese brand who was kind of the originator of it. If you really care about really having a soft glide bait, there is obviously the Nessie out there on the market. Now, the latest one that has just dropped kind of in the market has really been one that I've been a huge fan of personally. I've caught some fish on it now at this point, and luckily enough, we got some at the shop, and that is the new Ray Japan Osakana slide. Now, this bait, we got a shipment of it probably like 5 months ago or something like that at the shop. I took it out, my buddy CJ took it out, Ben from the Hook Up Tackle took it out, and we all were able to catch fish on this bait. And off rip, I was genuinely surprised by how good of a bait this actually was. It took me by complete surprise by the fishability of this bait, and I truly think that right now on the market, this is the best one made. Now, what makes this bait different than a Flag? Why am I not calling this a knockoff? Well, the shape and design of the bait is completely different. So as the Flag is a lot thinner in profile, this is much wider. And we're gonna get into that a little bit later, but just some differences right now. The hook, the harness system in this bait is not how you have on the Flag, where it's a split ring, swivel, split ring to a hook, but instead they went with a line through system on the bait. The line through system on this bait really makes it unique, and I was actually shocked by how cool having a line through bait is. And it kind of goes back to the durability thing that we were talking about before, where, you know, a lot of times the bait would just rip in half, and that's because the fish would eat the bait. They're hooked on that front hook that's attached to the bait, and they're just thrashing, they're going crazy. And what ended up happening normally is something ripping one or another. With the line through system, when you hook that fish, the hook will pop out and the bait will shoot up the line, and boom, you have a completely different system to it, where the line through will help for land ratio and for the durability of the bait overall. Again, it is a 170 millimeter size bait. This one has a lot more weight to it though. There's a lot more plastic to it. It's got a much wider, fatter shape to it. And for that reason, I truly think the stability of this bait and the thickness of it and the width of it makes this the easiest one to fish, actually, to get it to manipulate it to do certain things. Of course, you can fish this bait on just a straight retrieve. You can burn it. You can glide it just like a normal glide bait. You can skip the bait really well. It does everything that you'd want perfectly, and it's a badass bait. This is how the bait actually comes here. You've got the front treble here, up here, but it also comes with a stinger here in the back. And so when I was first fishing the bait, I actually took the stinger off because I thought it was unnecessary, that they're just gonna eat the whole thing. And I did watch a lot of fish eat the whole thing, but I missed a lot of fish at the same time. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. So then I put the stinger back on and I started landing more fish, but I still also missed a lot. And I was just like, what is going on? So what I found out, when you get bit on a soft glide bait like this, it's almost kind of like a frog in a sense. When you watch them eat the whole thing, you almost have to wait like a second just before you set the hook. If you see the bait disappear and you swing right away, they haven't positioned the bait well enough in their mouths to actually get a good hook set in them. So what we started to do is you'd watch them eat it on the cast, and it was super hard in the beginning to watch a fish completely annihilate this bait and not swing, but you kind of have to wait like, oh, and then hit them. And then the hookup ratio went much, much higher than what we were doing before. Now, the retail on this bait right now at the shop is about $21, $22, which is not bad. It's very similar to that flag, and I truly think that this is a better option in the long run because of the durability, the line through, and I just really like this bait a lot more than that flag. The material's a bit softer. It's kind of in between that Nessie and the flag, so you still get a pretty natural look to it underwater, where the tail kind of gives off a little bit more of a flutter underwater, and it just looks really, really good overall. So I'm very, very impressed with the Ray Japan Osakana slide. I think right now this is the best soft glide bait on the market. I'm excited for them to make a much bigger size, something that I will fish a lot more than just the smaller 7-inch. But for guys that are just getting into it, this bait, I believe it's around 2 ounces or so, so it's not too heavy, but having a nice like smaller swim bait rod will get the job done when fishing this bait. And then last but not least, we're gonna take a look at a soft glide bait that a lot of guys, when they first saw it, they're like, oh, it's just like another soft glide bait very similar to the flag. And when I got my hands on one, I quickly found out that it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And that is, this is the Megabass All-You Twitcher. Now, again, all of these 3 soft glides, it came out within the past year. Now, this All-You Twitcher is the only one that hasn't really officially released in the US. They released them over there in Japan, but Megabass America is still wondering if it's worth bringing over here to the States. And the reason for that is, well, it doesn't fish very similarly to any of these other actual glide baits. When I first got my hands on it, I thought it'd swim very similar to the Grow design, to the flag, but I was mistaken. It doesn't have a very wide glide to it actually at all. But what it has is a much tighter kind of walk-to-walk side, kind of like fishing a frog. When I first started to kind of figure out the bait, I was like, oh, it fishes very similar to like a small body frog, where it's like super light twitches and the bait will just kind of walk on itself. Can you weight the bait a lot more to get it to kind of glide side to side? Yes, but this right here is definitely the hardest bait to work out of all of these soft glide baits. This one takes a tremendous amount of effort to actually like get it to walk correctly. Even me, it was definitely very hard to figure out like, okay, what is the cadence, what is the speed, how much reel, how much rod do I put in? But once you get the bait going, it looks really good. I mean, it's got just a nice walk the dog style that's super tight. It's not very wide. So I learned that most of the Japanese guys, when they're fishing this bait, they fish it very similarly more to like, kind of like a frog or kind of like a bounty fish, and where you kind of want to skip it under a bush, a tree, a dock, and just kind of walk it super fast out, and then you get blown up. It's not a bait where you're kind of fishing open water and kind of like gliding it. It seemed to be better in those situations where you're fishing around tight cover and you're gonna get that bite within like the first 3 cranks of the handle. So that's kind of where I put the All-You Twitcher. It's definitely not a glide. It's definitely, as in the name implies, a twitch bait, and it kind of just twitches side to side. You can fish it on a straight retrieve. It's got a great swim to it. You can burn it as well. It skips great. So overall, for what its design and purpose is, it does it really well. But don't be confused. Even though it looks like the other guys, it's definitely not what I classify as a glide bait. It's more of a twitching, walk the dog style bait that you can fish up on top of the water, and it does what it does really, really well once you get into rhythm with the bait. Again, very similar in size. It's in that 7-inch range, around about 1 3/4 ounces. So they're all very similar. Now, a problem that I've had personally with the All-You Twitcher is the hook will fall out, the magnet will fall out. So it's been a problem with some of the Megabass baits is that there's just some problems with the hook system that I just have not really liked. The other baits do a much better job where you put the hook in, so kind of a flaw with the All You Twitcher personally, but other than that, for what it is, it swims pretty good and it's legit. Again, the retail on this bait's in that $20 price point if you can find them overseas in Japan. So not that expensive. The durability is pretty good. The softness of the plastic's really soft. So I think Megabass did do a fairly decent job, just a few little kinks that I feel like they need to work out, and it could be an applicable bait for a lot of guys here in the States to fish. Now, the rod that I've been using for these smaller soft glide baits has been a lighter Swimbait rod, something that's rated 1 to 3 ounces. And this has kind of been the rod that I've been fishing. This just happens to be the Megabass. This is the Mark 56. This has become one of my favorite smaller glide Swimbait rods on the market. It throws the baits really, really well. It's crisp, so I can give it the right twitches, but it's got a nice deep parabolic bend. So when I hook into a fish, I don't feel like I'm gonna, be pulling hooks, but it still has enough power because it is technically still a Swimbait rod that you can fight fish. Now, the reel and the line are very, very important to these baits. These are baits that you're not gonna be fishing really 20 pound, 25 pound mono. It's just gonna be too much for these baits. They're gonna need lighter line. So I fish these baits on a Bantam. This is the XG version, so this is like their 8-to-1 gear ratio. It's super fast, but you're fishing glide baits, so you're gonna need a faster reel to work the baits. The line that I'm using is 16 pound fluorocarbon. Now, I know a lot of guys might be like, oh, I don't wanna break off or whatever, but I'm telling you, the lighter the line you go, the better you're gonna get these baits to fish and swim. The heavier the line, the more resistance is gonna be put on these baits. And these baits are small, they need small inputs to fish and work right. So once you downsize the line and you go lighter on your reel twitches, you're gonna notice like a huge difference in the swim that these baits are gonna have. So those are the 4 soft glide baits kind of on the market right now. And it's interesting to see that soft glide baits, they're not a new thing, but to see 3 of them in 1 year time has been very interesting to see, which ones will try and innovate, make things a bit different, and kind of go out of the comfort zone. So I'm excited to see more soft glide baits come out on the market, bigger sizes. I'm excited to see what guys can do, because I think there's definitely potential here in these baits. Just some small kinks to work out, like durability, sizing, hookup ratio, and all those different things. But it seems like the guys that fish these baits, whether you're throwing a Flag 170 or the Osakana or even the Nessie, guys have caught fish on these baits, so they work, and people will jive well with one or the other. It just depends on what's available and where you're gonna get your baits from. So if you guys have any other questions about these baits, let me know with a comment down below. Which one have you guys fished personally, and which one might be your favorite out of all 4 of these baits? Let me know with a comment down below. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, go out there and chase your dreams.